fame. If you win it, comes and goes in a minute. Where's the real stuff in life to cling to long?
Welcome to the Boomer Pod podcast, everyone. Today's guest is movie and television stunt performer, coordinator, and actress, Miss Sally Bishop. Welcome, Sally.
Thank you.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Probably colder than you.
Tell us about your equestrian experience, Sally.
Well, I grew up in a family of trick riders, and I actually started trick riding when I was 7 years old, and I did my first show when I was 8 in a rodeo. And so we grew up doing that as kids, performing. And my dad also was in the film business as a head wrangler in Toronto, and also did stunts, horse related stunts. And so I grew up helping him with the horses on set. And he also had still have in the family over 50 wagons and carriages, horse drawn. And so I grew up with a wide variety of horsey activity, I guess you would say. Everyone in the family is into it in one way or another.
And how about the trick riding?
So my mom and dad were both trick riders. My dad had learned as a kid with his sister, because my grandfather also did some trick riding. My grandfather saw Buffalo Bill's Wild West show he saw, I think, once in the UK and once in Buffalo, New York. And that's what he decided to do. So he started putting on backyard Wild West shows. Well, they're at the fair, the local fair, but on a big scale for those days. And then my dad and his sister learned to trick ride. So when myself and my brother and my sister grew up, I wouldn't say we had a choice. We were told we were going to trick ride, but fortunately I enjoyed it, and I kept doing it for most of my life, and did rodeos all over the place, as well as I was a cast member of Cavalia, which is a Cirque du Soleil show. Well, it was one of the founders of Cirque du Soleil that started a show with horses. And then I started Roman riding on 4 horses, which is standing on Roman riding is different because you're standing 1 foot on each horse. And then I did it with 4, so like a chuck wagon team. And I did that as an act for a while, which was basically just 4 horses running away while I hung on for dear life. I think at some point it got better, but it was mostly a wreck at the beginning.
What amazing experiences. And what was it about cinema that drew you to that industry, Sally?
Having grown up around it with my family, with my dad and my brother, who did lots of wrangling at a young age, I was aware that was I guess a job, if you could call it that. But I wanted to have a real job. I went through that phase for a short while. And so I went to school, and then I guess thought I was, going to go another direction. I was going to go to law school, actually. And then decided, well, actually, I really did want to be a stunt performer. And when I was, I guess it would be almost 25 years ago, I was trick riding at the Calgary Stampede, which is a big, obviously one of the biggest rodeos in North America. And I met my soon-to-be husband, who was on the rodeo committee. And when I moved there, I decided that I was really going to go after it in Alberta, because they made a lot of Westerns there. So it was a natural fit for me to pursue it. And I started to really go after the jobs, and it didn't happen right away, but with persistence and hard work, I started to get the work. I think they were suspicious of me at the beginning because I was an Easterner, but I convinced them at some point that I could do the work.
And what can you say about the movie Let Him Go with Diane Lane?
Um, that was a film that was a show that was filmed in Alberta. Well, I'm not sure, maybe 4 years ago now, and the stunt coordinator was Steve McMichael from Alberta, and he had me come out to do some doubling. I did a stair fall on that show, which I would say was significantly harder than some because of what I was wearing. I couldn't wear really any padding. I was able, at the last moment, we were able to convince the director to allow a little jacket so that I could put a spine protector on. But to explain a stair fall, basically, I in the movie I'm getting pushed down the stairs, but the actor mimes that and I self propel myself. But it was a very old, sort of sharp edged staircase. And I was to travel, kind of bounce back and forth from side to side. So it was definitely a rougher one. And I must say, it went well. And at the end of it, Kevin Costner was the lead actor. And I'm not sure if he was a producer on that, but a lead actor, and he was really quite. I guess he liked the stunts, so the stunt coordinator came and found me and said, "Mr. Costner wants to talk to you," and took me around because he was working that day, and he took my hand and held my hand and said, with two hands, he said, "Dear, that was the best stunt I've ever seen," and gave me a hug. And I thought, I mean, of course, I was, kind of a bit awestruck because of all the movies that he's done, um, that he would say that. And then he asked me if I would be his stunt double, which I would give, of course I can't be, but it was a cute moment. And then if I could, I would. And then after that, he started saying, Diane, you need to come and see this replay and to watch the stunt again because they replay it a few times. And then I saw her after that, and she said, "I heard that you did a really great stunt." So, and then one more thing, the director's like, "You impressed the big man." It was funny. It was a proud moment, I'll say.
And how about doubling Robin Wright in the movie Land?
Yeah, that was um, I think for that whole film crew was a hard film overall. It was in late fall in the Alberta Rockies, and it was you got everything. You got gale force winds that shut down the set. You got, early snowfall that unexpected because we were filming on the top of a mountain. Excuse me. We had bears. We had bears going through set all the time. Uh, so there was a lot of things that made it challenging for everyone, but it was, it was like a kind of experience where you felt like you really had been out in the wilderness for a while, which was the theme of the show. For me, for those that haven't seen it, it is the story of a woman who goes through some tragedy in her life, and so she chooses to go and isolate herself in a cabin in the woods for um, months. And then at some point she becomes very sick and has to be rescued. But she has an epiphany in her life. But I would say also a very difficult thing on that show was having to do the cold water scenes, which was going in the water which the temperature, I mean, I hypothermic very quickly, and I had to warm up. I did have a wetsuit, but it was cut to go under the clothing, and in between the takes, I had to go in a warm up tent. And at some point, your body just isn't really warming up. So we did have to do that more than one day to be able to get it done, because I couldn't go in the water more than, a handful of times. It's like a knife searing through the back of your head when you hit it. If you've never experienced truly cold water, it's glacial runoff. So, and it was the late fall. So yeah, that was a challenge.
Hmm. Now, in the movie Luckiest Girl Alive with Mila Kunis, you were credited as stunt safety. What does that mean, and how is it different from a stunt coordinator?
That's a good question. So, a stunt coordinator is basically the head of the stunt department in a film. As a stunt coordinator, you are tasked with hiring the stunt performers. You plan the stunts, you ask for rehearsal, you have the meetings with the production team and do the budgets. um there's a lot to that, as well as being on set and directing the action. A stunt safety person is simply a stunt performer that is there on the day to assist with stunts, as additional eyes or additional help. Sometimes it can be water safety. Sometimes it can be with um, rigging or with horses. It's basically helping wherever needed, but not being in costume. You're behind the scenes.
And Fargo, one of my favorite TV series. Tell us about your character, Brandy.
I think that just aired and I haven't seen it yet. The episodes that aired. Um, and that show is still it's not all out yet. So I'll be careful about what I say, but I definitely enjoyed that experience of working alongside the actors that I did. And John Hamm was in that. I did work with him, but more so Juno Temple and Joe Keery. And there was quite an elaborate scene that took place, and it was fun. It was basically me being my own stunt double, but also having some lines. So it was a good challenge for me. It was very physical, and also one of my favorite shows. So I was just excited to be a part of it. Not to mention, they were filming it 15 minutes down the road from where I live in ranch country. So I thought it can't get much better than that.
Well, let's change the mood and genre a little bit. What was it like working on Ghostbusters Afterlife?
Oh, that was fun. I actually put that as one of my most fun experiences. I had a lot of days of just riding around in the Echo, which is the Ghostbuster car, and with the stunt people in the Ghostbuster uniform, and I felt really like nostalgic. I think I couldn't believe that that was my job, and it was a big, massive show with a lot of budget. So we had a second unit that went pretty much full time for at least a month. And I also did a stairfall on that show, but I did have, days of just being a passenger in that car while we drifted around in cornfields and just drove wildly all over the place. And the driver, his name's Leif Havdale, who was the stunt double, is a very, very amazing stunt driver. And we would come drifting around a corner where they would have a vehicle with a Russian arm, they call it, which the camera boom swings around on this vehicle. And the car and the camera would come together just inches apart every single time. And every time I thought we were going to hit the camera, and he was just bang on every time. So it was very impressive to be a part of that.
And what might you share with us about your family, Sally?
Oh, well, they're all very, I would say, horse oriented. My mom still has the farm that we all grew up on, which the farmhouse was built in 1810. It was actually my grandfather's grape farm. My family are fruit farmers on one side, and she still has 8 horses. She's 80 and still has 8 horses and still does all her lawn mowing and raking and flowers. And my brother has a farm across the road, and he's got horses, Canadians, that he's training to do liberty, to drive, all kinds of things. And he's still a head wrangler in Toronto for film, for commercials and things like that. And so they're still in the business, as well, actually, as my brother-in-law, Mark Schneider, who does stunts and rigging. And my sister, she gets pushed into helping sometimes too. So yeah, everyone's pretty involved. I'm the only one that's out west. But I visit them pretty often. They should visit me more though, but.
Is there anything else that I've missed, Sally? Anything that you'd like to mention or pitch?
Well, I would just mention that something I'm doing now with the strike that has now ended, but there was, 6 months of no work. There was some work that, if it was only Canadian, that was able to go ahead. But I started to work on a passion project, which is a documentary about cowgirls and ranching women. Where I live is the ranch country, the heart of ranch country in Alberta. And they're some of the biggest ranches in the West that still exist in the same family since the 1800s. And so I'm trying to get the documentary made. I just went to Whistler Film Festival as part of the documentary film lab, where they give you mentorship. And so it's a bit of a fun chapter for me to be on that side of things, to have a creative project. And I think that right now, with I call it the Yellowstone effect, I think all things Western are, people have an interest in that. So I'm excited to see where that goes.
Well, thank you for joining us today on Boomer Pod, Sally. Will you join us later at another time to give us an update on your current projects?
Yes, I'd be happy to. I'll hope to join you later and tell you that it's made.
Well, stay well, Sally.
Okay, thanks.
Goodbye.
Bye.
And thanks to our valued audience. Please stay tuned for more interesting celebrity interviews on the Boomer Pod podcast.
And you will be happy too.